Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 4 and episode number 603 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Monday, March 17th, 2025, and it is St. Patrick's Day, as you can tell by the decor. We had a little bit of a floating head there for a little bit. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A, and with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.com. Looks like it's going to be a little bit of a gray day here at the Beaver Lodge, getting a little bit of spring showers a little bit over the course of the weekend, even though we're not officially spring. But hey, it's going to be a lovely day anyway, right?
I wanna show you something real quick here. On Friday morning, it was about -8, I think, -10 Friday morning, and the local outdoor rink had a perfect sheet of ice. Perfect. And I thought I should go skating on that. And last night when walking, well,
Hockey soup.
is she gone? There's green grass showing. That was from Friday morning to Sunday evening.
Yeah.
That's how much it melted.
There is no snow anywhere to be seen where I am.
Wow. Oh, there's still lots of snow here, but it's melting quickly, like very, very fast. Yeah.
There's we 2 weeks ago, snow all knee deep in the backyard, all gone. We actually have 2 snow bells in the front garden already. I know. It's really weird how fast it happens, and already weeds growing in the garden for some reason that have popped up. It's like, how do you grow so fast? Ah, man. All right, Mr. Grizzly, how's your mental health today, sir?
Yeah, my lovely dog decided that something outside last night needed to be barked at 4 a.m. So I'm a little tired because she woke me up at 4. I'm like, what the hell was that? And I walked in and she's in the living room, and I had left the window open so she could get some fresh air because it's quite warm in here. And of course, she's got her head out the window barking at something. I'm like, that's uncharacteristic for her. She almost never barks, right? So I immediately grabbed her, said, come to bed with me. And she lied down beside me and went to sleep right away. But I did not need to wake up at 4 a.m. And I'm hoping she didn't wake up the building or the neighbors.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can see it, yeah.
I mean, everybody understands it's a dog, and she's a really quiet dog, but I don't want to be that neighbor, you know?
Right. Yeah, no, I understand that. All right. Let's see. Just having a little bit of difficulty at this end here. Kids and cubs. Apologies for the late start this morning. Unfortunately, neither Mr. or Grizzly or I know why, because we have the same microphone and the same computer system. But for some reason, I am not able to get the microphone working with the computer system with Restream, even though I had no problem using it with Zoom the other day when I was on Laura's show, on the O Show. So not exactly sure what's going on. We spent a good 15, 20 minutes trying to figure it out for you so we could bring you the best possible show. But that did not happen. So we will fix that after the show and hopefully have that for you tomorrow. So my mental health, slightly frustrated. And at the same time, trying to make sure that everybody has access to the show because, of course, I didn't get to do the pre-programming while we were setting all that up. So that's why I seem a little distracted at the moment. But hopefully everything will be okay. And once all that stuff is settled and everybody gets access to the show, we will definitely have something good for you today. Now, as you know, when we last spoke to each other on Friday, well, there was going to be a ceremony at the Governor General's residence at Rideau Hall because, well, officially now we have Prime Minister Mark Carney. No longer Prime Minister designate, Prime Minister. He has been sworn in, as has his cabinet, and it was a fairly, as simple as ceremonies get at Rideau Hall because there is some pomp and stuff, but there was no big walk up to Rideau Hall like in 2015. The ceremony was quick and efficient. People made several observations, like for example, how Prime Minister Trudeau hugged everyone after they swore their oaths and stuff like that, and Mark Carney basically had handshakes and that type of stuff. The stuff like how after Mark Carney was the only one to address the press at the podium, and then all ministers, had time afterwards, when it was all done, rather than having things mixed up and stuff. So thoughts like little things like that were noticed, but overall, pretty much two form type ceremony. Those who like that type of thing, and I do, I like watching those types of things because it's always nice to see the reactions of the ministers when they get sworn in, particularly the new ones, right? Because it's a moment, and you get to enjoy all of that. But straightforward ceremony. Really seemed the whole day seemed to be what do you put stamp marked with the term efficiency.
Yeah, I didn't watch any of it. My mom did. She called me up and she was watching it and called her sisters up to watch it, but I did not watch any of it. Friday wasn't a good day for me mental health wise. Got off the show, took Lola for a walk, got back in, had to lie down for a couple hours. Just terrible migraines. I don't know why. I didn't get much. Actually, I didn't get anything accomplished this weekend. Most of it was just lounging and trying to recover because I don't know. I went out Saturday night for a little bit, had a couple of pints of Guinness with a buddy, and I was home by 9:30. Watched the hockey game. So it might have been a little past 9:30 because I watched the Sens-Leafs game and Sens won 4-2.
Yes.
Netter. So yeah, I was happy about that. But yeah, I got home and then took Lola for a walk so she could meet the staff. And of course, with Saturday being Saturday and St. Patrick's Day being today, the amount of people out celebrating St. Patrick's Day on Saturday was quite something. And considering it was about 15 degrees, there were a lot of people out. It was pretty crazy to say the least.
Oh yeah, here too in the student quarter.
Oh yeah.
In Kingston on Aberdeen Street. Oh my God, there are pictures. It's full.
Oh yeah,
really full.
It was pretty crazy. So she, brought Lola out. She met and hung out with the staff and met a bunch of people and had a lot of fun. And then she's like, "Okay, time to go," and just literally turns and let's go home. It's quite adorable.
Aw, I like that. That's so cute. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. It's like I'm like that sometimes at parties. I'm like having this really great time, then all of a sudden it's just like, okay, I had enough now. I want to go home. All right. Okay, there's one thing I cannot seem to do, but that's okay. I will figure out how to do that later, and then so there's somebody on one feed. There are people on one feed who will not be getting the show live today because it's not happening for me. But hey, that's all right. So yes, you had all the ceremony, and let's put it this way: it's new.
Mhm.
In the sense that, yes, we have a new prime minister and all that kind of stuff, right? That's all good. And then, of course, there's a lot of stuff that's not exactly new. Oh, darn. Hold on, kids and cubs. This is going to look a little weird, but just bear with me for a second.
I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, everything just disappeared. And because I got the camera signed up that's right in front of the icon that brings everything back, so I had to go look to see where it was on the screen behind the camera. And I mean, and that's it. Just did it again. I'm sorry.
You got to watch.
I'm trying to learn a Mac.
Yeah, you got to watch where you click on a Mac. Everything will disappear if you click on the wrong spot.
Yeah, that's what keeps on happening.
So if you click off screen, everything disappears, and you click off screen again, and everything comes back.
Okay, there we go.
See how that works? Just click it off, click it on. On screen.
I'm still new here. All my life, until 3 days ago, PC. So Mac is it's like I'm trying to learn Japanese in 3 days. It's very hard. So there is not going to be a lot of change in the players, right? Where they go and all that type of stuff. And then if everybody had a realist, an expectation that Mark Carney is going to come in and, we're going to get all these new people and it's going to be wholesale change. No, clearly. I mean, unless he is willing to do some radical things. Now, there were some rumors coming into the cabinet selection that he would pick a couple of people from general society who are not currently in parliament to send a sign, that he would pick maybe people like Christy Clark or Jean Charest. He had made an overture to Jean Charest. Jean Charest said he'd be willing to help in some way after an election, but he wasn't interested in being cabinet. I don't know if Christy Clark was indeed approached, but there was rumor. She was not named to cabinet. So, but there seemed to be some talk about reaching out to some people that had some more progressive, conservative backgrounds to try and shore that up. As Evan Scrimshaw points out, the fact that they did reach out to Jean Charest and Jean Charest said no is kind of a big bonus because it makes it such that you don't have Jean Charest in cabinet, but you can still say we reached out, right? Because it's the thought that counts, right? So, and that was one of the main complaints from Pierre Poilievre afterwards. If you watched his press conference after, one of them was like 87% of people are people that were in the cabinet before. And yeah, that's true. But there are 18 people who were in cabinet before who are not there now. Because it's a pared down cabinet. A lot of people are not coming back. A lot of people are not running again, that type of thing. There are 3 new faces. But here's the thing. So unless Mark Carney was going to pick someone from general society that was not elected, when the Conservatives for the last 2 weeks have been saying, unelected. So you guys kind of eliminated that possibility by making it an issue with regard to Carney. He's not going to bring more people who are unelected to give you more cause to say that. Unless he was going to appoint senators to the cabinet, or unless he was going to appoint people from opposition parties to the cabinet. What was going to satisfy you? Because had he picked some liberal backbenchers that weren't in cabinet before, you would still say, well, but they're liberals, so they're all just like Justin. So, and
so
had
you mean
senators,
so the liberal government is going to have a liberal cabinet? Oh my God!
And pick among the liberal MPs that are already in the House. Shocker.
This guy.
I mean, because we certainly, like I said, picking liberal backbenchers wouldn't have made him happy because, well, they're liberals too, so they're just like Justin. They voted for it. Right? And senators, oh, well, unelected senators, blah, 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 blah. And then, well, nobody from the Conservative Party certainly would have crossed the aisle. So it would have been people, someone from the bloc, they'd got, they're working with the separatists. And if they brought in someone from the NDP, there's that coalition again. Now it's formal. So what did you want him to do, Pierre? Really? Seriously. So it's an empty complaint. And again, it's what he opened with, which means I don't have much when he responded.
He's got nothing.
He's got nothing. No. And it's really, really obvious that he's got nothing as well. So there were some surprises, however. Remaining in place as expected are Mélanie Joly as Foreign Affairs Minister, and she was not at the at the ceremony. I don't know what they call it. Is it called an investiture here in Canada? I'm not sure. But she wasn't at the, let's say, swearing-in ceremony. She wasn't there because she was at the G7 foreign ministers meeting in Charlevoix with little Marco. So she was sworn in later in a private ceremony. So a lot of people, if anybody's out there going like this, the foreign minister's not legitimate, she wasn't sworn. Yeah, she was. Just did a private ceremony afterwards, because she was at work. And David McGuinty, who is the Minister of Public Safety, has decided, responsible for the border and that type of stuff, is still in. But Dominique LeBlanc, who was the finance minister, and word on the tweet is that he really, really was looking forward to getting that position and was quite enjoying it, is no longer the finance minister. And that one was a bit of a surprise because everybody had suspected that would remain. Now, it's not as big a change as one would think, because Dominique LeBlanc is still like the main person. He was the first cabinet minister sworn in, which means he is still viewed as the most important, the most senior cabinet minister, other than Mark Carney, of course, First Morning Eagles. So he's still there, and he is, I think he has all the files that he had before, except specifically finance. So he will still be the point person on negotiating. He will still be the intergovernmental leader to go back and forth. All those positions are the same for him. But what they did is they brought in François-Philippe Champagne, who was I think, Science, Innovation, and Trade person, and brought him into finance. So it's still the same people that were in the room, because if you remember, right, it was Dominique LeBlanc, François-Philippe Champagne, and Doug Ford in that meeting with Commerce Secretary Howard Nuttlick the other day. So it will still be these people, these same people. They're all in the same. They're all still in the same positions-ish, right? So it'll still be the same core people. They just have slightly different responsibilities. So François-Philippe Champagne now comes in as the finance minister, which probably explains why he was there, because he was probably being introduced to Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and said, this is the person you're going to be dealing with specifically now. And that meeting had the opportunity to have that introduction happen. Where François-Philippe Champagne is where Anita Anand, who said that she was going to retire from politics and not come back, but was convinced by Mark Carney after he had called her to remain, she finally gets an economic portfolio, and she will be at Science and Innovation. And I think there's something else in there as well. There's Science and Innovation and another term in there, and hopefully I'll be able to find that for you soon and be a little more precise than I'm being right now with those things, because I'm looking for the where I put the information at the moment. So you got the big four, right? You got Anand, international trade. You have François-Philippe Champagne at finance. You have Dominique LeBlanc with the intergovernmental affairs, and you have lost it off the top of my head. It'll come to me. Oh yeah, Mélanie Joly at foreign affairs. Sorry, drew a blank there for a second. So all of those are done. Those are the key positions. similar people. Anita Anand is new to the group, but other than that, same main players, lots of stability, people in places where they're well suited. All of this is very good. Now, Chrystia Freeland, where is she? Because she's in cabinet again. If she's not at finance and she's not the international trade person, which we thought might be the thing to put her back in the room with Donald Trump, but no, that's not what happened. She is now going to be the person that is in charge of internal trade. So all the removal of the trade barriers and all that type of stuff, that's where she's going to end up. That's actually a really good position for her because it's still an economic portfolio. It's still trade portfolio, but it'll be internal trade. And how that is set up in order to counter and minimize the losses that Donald Trump wants to impose on us is actually a good position for her because it's kind of shoring up the defenses of the country because for an attack from a Putin-like person, which is her thing. That's what she does. So she's going to be very valuable there. It is a demotion. Yes. That's because, I mean, listen, she couldn't write her ticket. She got 3 point something. 8%, sorry. But she's still in there because obviously, they're good friends and all that kind of stuff. And they're pretty simpatico on certain things. So she's at international trade, but she also picks up the transport portfolio that Anita Anand had. And a lot of people think that Minister of Transport is not that important, but it actually is really important, particularly when you're talking about internal trade. Through and all that kind of stuff. And then, so transport doesn't seem to be like a sexy position, but it is a big one, and it's one that does call you to travel across the country and make lots of announcements across the country from coast to coast to coast. It is relatively visible, and of course, transport. Well, when anytime anything goes wrong with transport, well, you get lots of press attention. So just ask the people who were. What was his name again? Oh, I can't remember at the time. But when soon after COVID, when we were having trouble with planes because CBSA and the people that were doing security screening and whatnot had not brought back all the employees that they needed at the time, and people were upset. That all fell on the Minister of Transport's lap. And they had that big file for several months until everything got sorted. So these things kind of happen. So Dominique LeBlanc is the Minister of International Trade and International Trade and Intergovernmental Affairs, Minister of U.S.-Canada Relations, and President of the King's Privy Council of Canada. So those are that's the full title. Mélanie Joly, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Development. François-Philippe Champagne, Minister of Finance. Anita Anand, Minister of Science, Innovation, and Industry is the full name of it. So those are the top four. I guess. Number 5, Bill Blair, Minister of National Defense. That one makes me sad. I was sincerely hoping he would finally be shuffled out. But here's the thing. There's also limited amount of how many people you want to shuffle out at this particular time, given that we're going right into an election and somebody may drop something.
Right into election, though? We still don't know that. It's not been announced.
Yes, the assumption is that we're going right into an election, and you don't want too many people learning the file now, right? In case something happens during the election period, which Donald Trump is more likely to do because he likes to insert himself in other people's elections and cause chaos. So it's probably not the time to wholesale change people and bring in too many new people, new cabinet ministers who are not yet up to speed with the intricacies and the public diplomacy.
It's the sensible thing to do. It's the right
thing. Their job requires.
I guess.
Yes, it is. Again, Mark Carney describes himself as a pragmatist. This is the pragmatic thing to do. But for those of us who would have liked to have seen a little more signs or symbols, there is some disappointment that way. We have Patty Hajdu, who remains the Minister of Indigenous Services. We have Jonathan Wilkinson, who remains the Minister of, I believe, Natural Resources, I think he was, or energy, but he's got energy and natural resources. They're now together. So he's got both of those. He's a good person for that. Jeanette Pitsipa-Taylor returns as the president of the Treasury Board. She was there before the previous little shuffle that put Anita Anand there, and now she goes back there. She's pretty efficient at that and good, and it's a job that doesn't have a lot of public face. And she's how would I put it? She's also not necessarily the most effective communicator in the sense that she might come across as way too polished, way too much of a politician. And if you're trying to give that type of vibe, but someone is really effective, well, you'll put them in a department where you need someone who's effective, but doesn't have a lot of face time. Mm-hmm. So that's where that is. Stephen Guilbeault, to the dismay of Danielle Smith and all the conservatives, remains in caucus and in cabinet. Sorry, not in caucus. Of course, he remains in caucus. Remains in cabinet as the Minister of Canadian Culture and Identity, which used to be called Heritage, Minister of Parks Canada. So he maintains an environmental aspect, and he becomes the Quebec Lieutenant. Some people have decided to take issue not only with him being there, but with heritage being removed and it being called Canadian Culture and Identity. Yves-François Blanchet in particular had a complaint about that because, Quebec culture is not Canadian culture. Quebec culture is part of Canadian culture. It is not all of Canadian culture. But by removing heritage, Canadian heritage, and saying Canadian culture and Canadian identity, Canadian culture and identity, that it leaves an opening for Blanchet to say, well, he's not prioritizing our culture anymore. He's just going to if Quebec culture is just one thing among Canadian culture and treated just like everything else, well, of course, there's no indication that that's what the attitude is, but words have meanings, and when you change words, then some people decide to read into that. And Yves-François Blanchet and Jagmeet Singh, that was pretty much the crux of their responses to that. Pierre Poilievre also was very dismayed that Stephen Guilbeault was in cabinet and wanted to make a point, and lately he's been doing that lightly, making a point about Stephen Guilbeault's criminal record for having been an environmental activist and being arrested twice for climbing buildings. Again, you have a deferred prosecution agreement. Yeah, if we're going to be talking about law abiding here, if you are going to open the door, counselor, in this court of public opinion to judging the respect for the law other people have, let us remind you that you have your current position, number one, because your party cheated in a federal election, denied it for 5 years, and then before you were going into an election again, decided to quietly admit that you did do it and that you had cheated all along in order to save 4 people from going from jail, and then you tried to still keep the proceeds of the crime, which you were forced to then return. That's how you got to where you are. Yes, that's how you got to where you are, by cheating. And then you yourself, in a subsequent election, cheated and got called to the mat by Elections Canada, where you willingly signed a deferred prosecution agreement, which to me, I infer from that you believe you would have been found guilty had you been brought to court. And therefore, you would have been in the position, well, probably you wouldn't be leader now if that had happened. But number 2, let's say you had still been leader, you would be commenting about Stephen Guilbeault being arrested when you would actually have a record. Convicted in court. Yeah. You are very ill-placed, Mr. Poilievre, to talk about other people being
glass
criminals.
Houses and stones, right?
Very ill-placed. But hey, if you do want to open that door. So, yeah. You need to pump your brakes on that, Mr. PP. Then we have Chrystia Freeland, Minister of Transport and Internal Trade. Kamal Khera, who is a nurse by training, is now the Minister of Health. Gary Anandansagri is the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada because Arif Virani has decided that he is not going to be running again, and retains Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations. I'm glad they did not merge Crown Indigenous Relations with Indigenous Services because there was talk about that, and they do work better as individuals, so they did keep them individual, and Northern Affairs. So Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs, Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada. They all kind of go together. Again, because you do a lot of legal stuff when you do Crown Indigenous Relations. Might be handy to have the Attorney General also be the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations to make those processes go a little smoother. This might be a good thing. Rishi Valdez moves to Chief Government Whip. If you remember Rishi Valdez, she was the person that was very, very, very emotional the previous time she was sworn in, became the first Filipina to be sworn into cabinet. She was equally emotional. Well, not, maybe a little less emotional, but still emotional. That day, again, got the ahs from everyone. She's the Chief Government Whip. Now, this, of course, means she won't really have much to do because Parliament's not in session. And if we do go into election before Parliament's in session, well, then she really won't have much to do, really. But it's cabinet, and you do need a whip.
Indeed. This comment from Mr. Jim here. I'm just reading about this on the Associated Press. Carney orders a review of U.S. fighter jet purchase amid trade tensions. Now, Canada had agreed to purchase 88 F-35s, but it looks like the only legal commitment of funds is for the first 16 of those aircraft.
Right.
So the remainder might be cut, and we might end up with the Gripen, which I'm fine with because Saab said they'd be happy to help us set up to build the product here in Canada.
Yep, exactly.
And Saab being a Swedish company, right? So NDP said we'll build the F-35s here, and I'm like, how? With what? We don't have the intellectual property. That's Lockheed Martin that owns that. We can't do that.
Right. And Portugal has already scrapped.
Yes.
Because they were later to join the process, so they were further not as far along as we were. But yeah, they've scrapped it already. So they've scrapped it, and we are openly, so the whole world can hear, talking about revising that. Yeah. That's again a little domination move from Carney.
He's not messing around.
There's 2 or 3 of them now, right? Probably will not be talking to the President of the United States face to face until we've established that respect will be there. Normally the first trip of a prime minister is to the United States, but no, he went to France and the UK instead. That sends a sign. Well, and now talking publicly about scrapping the F-35. That's also a sign. I do want to finish the cabinet thing, but if you have anything to say there, Mr. Weasley, about the F-35.
Well, I was going to say that we're considering the Gripen. That's on the table, and so is the Eurofighter, the Typhoon, which is designed by Airbus. It's consortium Airbus, BAE Systems, and Leonardo. The Typhoon is also a pretty heavy-duty aircraft, and one of the complaints is, well, but then we'll have multiple aircraft. Well, the reason we went with one single source was fiduciary.
Right.
But here's the thing. Prior to the CF-18s, we were a multi-aircraft Air Force. We had the CF-104 Starfighters, the CF-5s, and the Voodoos, up until we received our first shipment of CF-18s. And even when we had the CF-18s, we were still using those aircraft. We sold the CF-5s off to Botswana. We mothballed the Voodoos and the Starfighters because they were severely outdated from the 1960s. But we had 3 different fighter jets at one point in time.
Yeah,
so if we were to do that again, what's the big deal?
Yeah, it was not odd at all.
And the Americans have multiple fighter jets. So it's not, they don't just have F-35s. They have F-35s, F-22s, F-16s, F-18s, Super Hornets. We can do this too, and it looks like we're going to have to.
Yep, which is fine by me.
Fine by me.
The putting all the overpriced eggs in one basket type thing, probably not a good strategy anymore. But here's the the sense of how fast this flipped, right? Because it wasn't that long ago that absolutely every single NATO partner was looking at, hey, let's all do this so that we have this common. Boy, I'm betting a lot of people are glad they didn't do that now.
Well, and this comment from Mr. Jim, we can change the rules because prior to the F-35, we were mandated to have dual engines since the F-104, the F-104 Starfighter, or as Playing with 3D calls them, the Widowmaker, because they crashed all the time.
Right.
They were a single engine, dual intake single engine. The F-35 is dual intake single engine. We always, since the F-104, it's always been dual. And when the RCAF issued their design parameters for what became the Avro Aero, the RCAF has always been really strict about wanting dual engine aircraft, always. So I was kind of surprised the F-35 won because it's a single engine.
I know.
And I was like, well, okay.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of people were surprised with that.
Yeah, but we've always had like the CF-18's dual engine. They tried to sell us the F-16s, and they're like, no, it's a single engine aircraft. We're not doing that.
Right.
So they augmented the design specifications for this one for the F-35, but I think if we look at the Eurofighter and the Gripen, that might be an alternative.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. I like that. After, let's see, who do we have? Rishi Valdez. We had Stephen McKinnon, who remains in cabinet. He was the Minister of Labor. He remains that, but now it's called Minister of Jobs and Families. Now, this is another one where Jagmeet Singh and people are pushing semantics because technically labor is larger than just jobs or employment. But that one's been, that's been Minister of Employment many times, or Minister, Employment Development or Economic Development, or so much stuff like that. Personally, I don't think it's any more complicated than just wanting to make the language more basic. Minister of Jobs. And it's the Minister of Jobs and Families, which I don't know if anybody was complaining about that noticed, but Minister of Labor, push, and Families probably doesn't roll off the tongue. I'm not sure I would want to be the Minister of Labor and Families. Just maybe it wasn't more complicated than that. Maybe we shouldn't put labor and families in the same sentence if we want people to think that labor actually means jobs and not pushing a few kids out. Maybe. My mind is weird. Then we have David McGuinty, who remains Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness. Terry Dogood. That's probably got to be the best name in politics. Dogood. Who's now the Minister of Environment and Climate Change. He was the Minister of Sport at the time. Nathaniel Erskine Smith remains. Thank you. And remains at Housing, Infrastructure, and Communities. Thank you. And one of the comments that you keep on hearing is because, as you've noticed, I have not yet said Karina Gould's name. She was not included.
I was kind of surprised at that, actually.
I was too. In another way, I'm not. Let's just put it this way. If it's a petty thing, she is the one that did go after him the most.
Agreed.
If it's a policy thing, she didn't want to scrap consumer carbon pricing. She just wanted to cancel the current increase, which really sends an opposite message from what Mark Carney is trying to send, and maybe having her in cabinet would have had noise. She also proposed a UBI, and I haven't heard it myself, but I've had it on authority from other people that Mark Carney has said in the past, as you say, Mr. Grizzly, that a UBI is inevitable and will become necessary because of automation and AI. However, it is also possible that Mark Carney, as a pragmatist, while we will need one right now in a trade war, maybe not a best time to divert resources there. Let's just focus resources on supports for people and industries who are affected. And once we get past that phase, maybe then. I'm not saying that that's what his policy is, but again, it might have been something to reduce noise at this particular time, because that is not going to be the focus. I have a good feeling, because Karina Gould was there in the background, and you noticed her at the announcement at DeFasco just the day before, is that she probably would be in cabinet if Carney wins. And she would be brought back. But I kind of understand why she's not in now. Probably would have been a good idea to put her, but I kind of understand. Then we have Rachel Bendayan, who was in cabinet before. I think she had joined cabinet in the previous shuffle, but had a lower profile department. She is now the Minister of Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship, which means that Mark Miller is no longer in cabinet. Very, 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 very good friend of the Prime Minister. Of course, so is Dominic LeBlanc, and he is in cabinet. So, again, right, people go, oh, maybe it was personal. It was like, well, yeah, if you look at Mark alone in isolation, maybe, but then how do you explain Dominic? Elizabeth Brière, who was also in a cabinet before, but in a lower position, is now Minister of Veterans Affairs and responsible for the Canada Revenue Agency. So I think she was responsible for the Canada Revenue Agency alone, and now she's got Veterans Affairs to go with it. Joanne Thompson is a new name to cabinet. She's a formal provincial cabinet minister who's been brought in, and apparently a very good friend of Mark Carney. She's Minister of Fisheries, Oceans, and the Canadian Coast Guard. I would have to actually look, however, because I don't remember if she had been elected to federal parliament, or whether she was brought in. Okay, she's the member of St. John's East, Newfoundland and Labrador, so she was in parliament before. But yes, formal provincial minister, and now I guess backbencher before, and now elevated to cabinet. So she is one of the few backbenchers that were brought up. Another person brought up is Ariel Kayabaga, who is, I believe, she's from Burundi originally, if I remember correctly. She is now the Minister of Democratic Institutions and the Government House Leader. So she gets elevated. Cody Blois gets elevated to cabinet. He is from Nova Scotia. He is now the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food and Rural Economic Development. And he's very interesting because a lot of people were talking about bringing in people maybe that had a progressive, conservative bent or whatnot to reach across the aisle. Cody Blois was one of the first people to sign the letter and ask for the Prime Minister to step down. And back when the Conservatives proposed cutting consumer carbon pricing on things for farmers, such as with the fuel they use to heat their barns or to dry the grain or that type of stuff, he actually voted with the Conservatives for that. So someone who has taken an anti-carbon pricing position openly against his government, and that was not 100% pro-Trudeau by the time he had to leave and actually put his name to it. So bringing in someone from the other side. Very good move. And then Mr. Ali Essasi, who I believe is the first Iranian Canadian to be elevated to cabinet, and he becomes the Minister of Government Transformation and Public Services Procurement. And that's it.
There's the cabinet.
That's cabinet. So it's a fewer. It's not as small as 15 or 20 that people were expecting. I think it's about 20 to 24, maybe 26. Can't remember, somewhere around there, including Carney himself. So that's important. And another little tiny move that maybe people hadn't noticed because it kind of happened after is that within cabinet there are subcommittees, and Prime Minister Carney himself has taken the chair of the cabinet subcommittee on Canada-US relations and national security, with Dominic LeBlanc being the vice chair on that one. So we have a cabinet, serious, pared down. They keep on referring to it as a wartime cabinet. technically we're not at war, but we're in a trade war, and people are worried about annexation. So there's a lot of talk about being on a war footing. So slim down cabinet. You will notice there are certain things that we usually see in cabinet that are not there, like Minister of Status of Women, Minister of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Minister of Youth. There are no such things.
Mm-hmm.
Jagmeet Singh of the NDP is taking that as a sign that the Liberals are abandoning all of those. Women's issues, they don't care about that anymore. If you're young, they don't care about your issues anymore. If you're differently abled, we don't care about your issues anymore. If you're a senior, we don't care about your issues anymore. If you're a union, because we don't care about labor, just jobs, well, they're not. So the NDP is trying to wiggle itself a position based on semantics. Now, I love words, and words are my life. And when you eliminate those things, then yes, it could cause people to wonder. Again, the thing with Mark Carney is that none of us know him well enough to know what his full positions are on that, right? We mentioned the other day about stuff that the former Prime Minister Trudeau had done for the 2S LGBT plus community. And people don't really know if Mark Carney is all in, because I've never heard a public pronouncement, and as a governor of Bank of Canada or Bank of England, he never would have been called to make one on the issue. So there's a lot of people that are wondering and are waiting and would probably need to hear stuff. Jagmeet Singh has opened the door for the opportunity for the new Prime Minister to speak on these issues should it come up. One would assume, based on the cabinet, it is not completely gender parity. I think it's off by 1 or something like that, but it hasn't strayed that far from gender parity. It's like 13-11 rather than 12-12 or something like that. Or, you know,
I think it's 14-10, but yeah,
14-10 or something. So, but it hasn't completely strayed. And well, Anita Anand, Petty Haidu,
mm-hmm.
Gary Anandansangari, Richie Valdez.
Well, and Melanie Joly wasn't in the cabinet photo the other day,
right?
Although she was named the cabinet, so maybe it might be 11. It might be 11 instead of 10. Ariel Kayabaga, Ali Hassasi. If he's turned his back on visible minorities, women, I'm having difficulty seeing it based on the composition of cabinet. Mm-hmm.
So, and he brought in 4 new people. 2 are women, 2 are visible minorities. Joanne Thompson is older. I don't think she's a senior citizen. I don't. Well, 64. So someone older. So again, there's a lot of this that's see into it what you want to see at the moment and over time. But these are, when you make these types of decisions, these are doors that you open. So this is noise that he has introduced into his campaign, Mark Carney, by changing these names and these titles and what's in and what's out, that can be exploited. But again, how much of that is going to happen or not? But they are, again, this is a proof in the pudding thing here, right? He's going to have to walk his talk afterwards if he doesn't want to lend any credence to the claims or questions that are being asked by the Bloc or being asked by the NDP about who's in or out. But Jagmeet Singh is running with this as in, see, he's abandoning you like this, as all bankers do, because they only think about shareholders and profits. So, if you're worried, don't jump to the Liberals, stay with me, because, if you're a union member, I'll protect you. And if you're a visible minority, I'll protect you. And if you're a woman, I'll protect you. And if you're a senior, I'll protect you. Because the Liberals won't anymore. They've gone full banker.
Mm-hmm.
And then Quebec, I was like, Quebec will be going, Canadian identity. Look at that paternalistic thing, blah, 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 again. Right. So those are the 2 avenues. Now, Mark Carney has been saying Maître chez nous a lot, and he also has been saying in French that Pierre wants to cut Radio-Canada, which Pierre doesn't say.
He never
So-
says it.
He never
Here's
says
a
it.
clip.
But Mark Carney will say it. So those are two things that
Yes.
might give people in Quebec a sense that, yeah, maybe he doesn't actually, the fact that he changed it doesn't mean that he's thinking about subsuming Quebec culture into as
Mhm.
Canadian, just one thing. But again, how he's going to speak, if Mark Carney goes to on Tout le monde en parle about 3 weeks before the election and actually knocks it out of the park, you know he's going to be asked that.
Of course he will be. Here's a clip of Mark Carney. This is very recent. I don't know why it's so tiny, but it's what he says that's important. It's he's in France right now.
Yeah.
He's talking with President Macron. So have a listen to this. It's only 50 seconds. So
we both stand for sovereignty and security, demonstrated by our unwavering support for Ukraine under your leadership. With you, Mr. President, I want to ensure that France and the whole of Europe works enthusiastically with Canada, the most European of non-European countries, determined like you to maintain the most positive possible relations with the United States. Canada is a reliable, trustworthy, and strong partner of France, which shares our values and lives them through action during this age of economic and geopolitical crises.
I thought that was pretty interesting. The most European of non-European nations.
Mm-hmm. I like that a lot.
Mhm.
Please tell us we're joining the EU. Please tell us we're joining the EU. Please tell us we're joining the EU.
It seems to become it looks like a very real possibility. It really
Well,
does.
again,
I mean,
this type of talk lends one to believe that there's some openness or there's some initial exploratory discussions happening behind the scenes, but they're not really to say anything publicly yet. But that would kind of... You don't mention these types of things per accident. It's like an Agatha Christie novel. If there's a gun on the table somewhere in the first act, it better be used in the third somewhere, or else why talk about it? So, interesting. I like that. I have to say I like that a lot. And you do have to understand here that when you have Macron and Carney side by side, you have a very, very interesting situation where you have the man who is now becoming, for all intents and purposes, the dean of the global's progressive and democratic and freedom-loving nations, Macron,
Mhm.
along with the new guy on the block, technically, Mark Carney, because the dean of all of that was the position we held with Trudeau.
Right.
But given that Mark Carney is a global financial rock star
Very
and has
well known.
met everybody and has all the contacts already,
Mhm.
the new guy on the block comes with a certain set of skills and connections and whatnot that, even though he's new, places him way higher up the food chain in terms of international respect than Pierre Poilievre would be, let's say, if he was coming in as the new Prime Minister of Canada in that global, I guess, with no other international reputation or experience, and hasn't proven to the world that he's already been able to save 2 economies. So, yeah. So it's an interesting juxtaposition because that right there, Macron and Carney, is probably for the world's centrists and progressives, and again, freedom and democracy and rules-based order-loving people, the power couple right now. So it's really nice to see them working together in this way. Mr. Grizzly, do you happen to have handy Prime Minister Carney addressing Canada outside Rideau Hall for the first time as Prime Minister?
No, I do not.
Okay, that is okay, because I happen to have that right here, and I will be able to send that to you. So let's open up our mail and get that to you. All right. So his, how would I put it? His address wasn't all that long, specifically. He did take some questions, though.
Mm-hmm.
So that took more of the time. There wasn't anything majorly earth-shattering or moving in it. It was pretty standard fare. Of course, there's a couple of moments, of course, where he's trying to put his stamp on things and showing it could be different. And the questions were, how would I put it? Some were good. Nothing was particularly hard-hitting, which is okay for this particular type of ceremony. But there are a couple of people that were trying to, get him to scoop himself. As a good journalist will. But good message discipline here. Anyway, if you have it handy, Mr. Wesley, we can give it a show.
I do.
Okay.
Bring it up in just a second here. I'm reading a tweet from Pierre Poilievre, and this one kills me. It's like, Carney's cabinet looks just like Justin's.
Yeah.
And now they want to be elected a fourth time. What's it supposed to look like?
Here's the thing, right? Pierre Poilievre wants you to believe that Mark Carney comes in and nothing changes and everything is the same because it's the same elected parliament that's behind him. But we've all witnessed with our own eyes how with the same Conservative caucus behind him, Pierre Poilievre has completely changed the Conservative Party of Canada from Erin O'Toole. Right?
His shadow cabinet is bigger than the actual cabinet.
Yeah. I'm going to bring home small government.
But it's bigger than
when you're going to start. We see your bills, by the way, Pierre. When you're going to start. So again, every accusation is a confession.
Yes.
Right.
OK. Que la fête commence. Alors, bonjour tout le monde. Hello, everyone. It is my honor to respond to the Governor General's request that I form a government. And it's a solemn duty to serve as Prime Minister at this time of great consequence for our country. The ceremony we just witnessed reflects the wonder of a country built on the bedrock of three peoples: Indigenous, French, and British.
Very important.
The opening and closing prayers evoke the original stewards of this land. They remind us of the deep roots from which we grow and underscore the values to which we aspire. The office of the Governor General links us through the Crown and across time to Canada's proud British heritage. Et la cérémonie s'est déroulée dans nos deux langues officielles. Notre identité bilingue nous rend uniques.
Okay.
Et la langue française enrichit.
He said, and the ceremony took place in both official languages, which is unique to us. And then, sorry, I missed the end of the last sentence there.
La culture. On these foundations, Canadians have built a dynamic nation that celebrates its diversity, that cares for the vulnerable in society, and that always strives for a better tomorrow. Ce nouveau cabinet est pleinement conscient de nos responsabilités pour renforcer les fondations de notre nation durant cette crise et pour bâtir un Canada encore meilleur.
Okay. So
J'ai le plaisir de vous présenter l'équipe extraordinaire.
This cabinet is aware of its responsibilities that it needs to take on in order to build a Canada that is stronger.
Qui servira au sein de mon gouvernement et qui défendra les valeurs qui nous tiennent au cœur.
Okay.
Notre gouvernement.
And will defend the values that we hold close to our heart.
changera notre façon de travailler, se concentrera sur l'essentiel et adoptera une approche axée sur l'action.
So this will change our way of working. I forgot what he said right before. But we'll bring about a cabinet that aligns itself on action oriented.
Pour
There we go. That's what I'm
relever
looking for.
les défis devant lesquels nous faisons face. Canada's new government is changing how we work so we can deliver better results faster to all Canadians. We have new ministers with new ideas, ready to respond to new threats and to seize new opportunities. Canada's new government is focused on the things that matter most to Canadians: growing more higher-paying jobs, improving affordability, and making Canada more secure. Canada's new government will be action-oriented, driven by a smaller but highly experienced team made to meet the moment we are in. Our leaner cabinet will focus on two priorities in particular. First, protecting Canadian workers and their families in the face of unjustified foreign trade actions. And second, growing this great country by putting more money in Canadians' pockets, by ensuring that government spends less so Canada can invest more, by building millions of homes, by making Canada a superpower in both conventional and clean energies, by creating new trade corridors with reliable partners, and by forging one Canadian economy out of 13. We will relentlessly pursue this positive agenda because Canadians know that negativity isn't strength. They know that negativity won't pay the rent or the mortgage. The negativity won't bring down the price of groceries. Negativity won't win a trade war. We know that by building together, we can give ourselves far more than anyone else can take away. Nous sommes maîtres chez nous. Notre pays est Canada fort. Et notre gouvernement est uni et fort. Nous commencerons immédiatement avec notre première réunion du cabinet. Our country is Canada strong. Our government is united and strong. And we will immediately get to work with our first cabinet meeting as soon as I respond to a few of your questions. Thank you very much.
All right, so let's stop there.
Thank-
So again, pretty pragmatic, and right? Not flashy, no big announcements, just very pragmatic and to the point. You will notice that he said a couple of times Canada's new government. You remember where we've heard that before.
Mhm.
Yes, that was a Stephen Harper thing.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, of course. Remember, he was governor of the Bank of Canada under Stephen Harper. So, but Canada's new government clearly wants to send the sign that yes, that we have a new government. There's, again, as we learned with the Harper days, there's only so long you can use that. Canada's new government before people start laughing at you. But right now, making an emphasis on that. So again, right, nothing big earth-shattering, saying that immediately after this that they're going to go into a cabinet meeting and start discussing things, and then right into the Q&A. So let's see what he's got there, Mr. Grizzly.
Thank you. Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Nous allons maintenant passer à une période de questions de 15 minutes. On va prendre une question suivie. We'll now do a 15-minute question period, one question, one follow-up. Merci.
Raymond Filion de TVA. Bonjour, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Juste ici.
Okay.
Enchanté. Vous allez vous rendre en Europe au cours des prochains jours. Est-ce que vous comptez également aller aux États-Unis rencontrer M. Trump avant de déclencher des élections?
Okay. So
J'ai reçu
you are going to Europe. Will you also be going to the United States to visit President Trump before going into an election? Sorry.
une invitation de Monsieur le Président de la France afin d'avoir une conversation sur plusieurs enjeux, des enjeux commerciaux, des
I don't I don't get why people are saying his French is not that good.
Here's the thing. His French was apparently, I've learned more about that his French was really, really, really good. When he was the governor of Bank of Canada, he was saying, like, have the meetings, let's have the meetings in French and all that kind of stuff. But then, and I guess he had to use it a little bit in Europe. But I think when he stopped being the governor of the Bank of England, he didn't really have any opportunity to use it. So he's lost a lot of it. So a lot of it is coming, like if we compare it to 6 or 8 weeks ago, a lot of it is coming back. And it's coming back fast, and he's getting more and more comfortable. But that I did not know that all that time ago, that he actually managed to bring himself to a point where he was actually very proficient and fluent, which kind of explains the previous thing, because I was sitting there like, he knows all the words and all the jargon, right? Like the jargon of his industry comes quickly to him. It's like, how did he know all these like really intricate and specific terms like this, but he's having trouble accessing certain ideas? And it's like, and when I got that piece of information, that was the piece of the puzzle. That was missing.
It comes back.
Is that,
the more you work at it, the better you get, right? And that's the case with him, because I don't have an issue with it at all. And I am not, by any stretch of anyone's imagination, close to being bilingual.
Yeah. So here, I think what here will be the speed of speech, how natural it is. Again, when you compare it to May, Sing, and especially Poilievre and Blanchet in French, because it is still slow and deliberate, and you can still see every now and then he's translating in his head and looking for stuff. Because in a heated debate, nobody's going to allow him to speak this slow in a debate and not jump all over him,
of course,
or cut him off. That's the thing. So he has the skills, he has the ability, but it's the rapid access memory, if anything, right?
Les enjeux en ce qui concerne la sécurité d'Europe, l'Ukraine, la sécurité du Canada. J'ai bien reçu une autre invitation de Monsieur le Premier ministre du Royaume-Uni. Alors, c'est une bonne idée d'y aller.
If you want to go ahead.
So I received an invitation from the president of France to come and have a meeting to discuss commercial interests of matter related to security in Europe, in Ukraine, and Canada. And I also received an invitation from the Prime Minister of England.
Parce qu'il faut que nous diversifions nos partenaires commerciaux et renforcer notre sécurité.
Because we must diversify our economic partners and strengthen our national security.
J'aurai, j'espère, une conversation avec Monsieur le Président des États-Unis, mais je n'ai pas un plan pour le moment d'y aller. Merci.
I hope I will have a conversation with the leader of the United States, but at the moment, I have no plans to go.
The question's on a trip to Paris and London in a few days. I received an invitation from the President of France to discuss a variety of issues, both economic, commercial, to reinforce those relationships, also issues related to security in Europe, in Canada. Similar discussions will be had with the Prime Minister in the United Kingdom. This is sensible. Security is a priority for this government, reinforcing our security, as is diversifying our trading and commercial relationships. Of course, with both Europe and the United Kingdom, there are many opportunities. And as I said a moment ago in my remarks, there are historic ties. With respect to the President, I don't have plans to go to the United States. I look forward to speaking to him at the appropriate moment. Thank you.
Monsieur Carney, il y a Monsieur Rubio, Marco Rubio.
You're going to say something, sir?
Yes. The other thing that I wanted to mention, that because he referred to his earlier comments. In his earlier comments, remember, he talked about 3, Indigenous, French, and English. So meeting the leader of France, meeting the leader of the UK, and on his way back, we'll be stopping in Nunavut. So the people who are doing his schedule, again, as a comms person, talks about 3, this goes to the 3 as his first moves.
Interesting. Did you know that yesterday was his birthday, by the way? He turned 60 yesterday.
Yes, I saw. Yeah, I had forgotten, but I remember I had heard it on a little thing and made a note. Yes, it was his birthday yesterday. Pretty nice birthday present, eh?
No kidding.
Ce matin, dans Charlevoix, il a essentiellement répété les propos de Donald Trump, selon qui le Canada, économiquement, serait mieux en tant que 51e État.
C'est ridicule.
En tant que Premier ministre, qu'est-ce que vous répondez à ces propos du secrétaire d'État américain tenu en sol canadien?
Okay, so the question is, in Charlevoix, the U.S. Secretary of State, I think it is. Is he Secretary of State, Marco Rubio? I can't remember his title. I'm sorry. Marco Rubio basically reiterated comments that Donald Trump made about Canada and the 51st state, to which Mark Carney intervened, said that's ridiculous, and basically asking him to react to such statements.
Right.
C'est fou, hein? C'est fou. C'est simple, c'est fou. Point final.
You can go ahead and translate that.
I don't think you need to have that translated, but you could go. He's just going to basically say it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Not even going to address it. Yeah.
Yep.
English, please, sir. En anglais?
It's crazy.
Everybody laughing.
His point is crazy. That's it.
Question.
Hi, Prime Minister Tom Perry with CBC. Can I ask you what your plans are for the next few weeks? Are you going to be bringing back the House? Are you going to be calling an early election? And if so, when should Canadians expect to go to the polls?
Well, they certainly should expect to go to the polls before November. The news today is...
Okay, that was funny because we have a pseudo-scheduled election in October. You can have the election in October, or you can push it to the following year when it's scheduled, but you can have it a year early. So I think that's pretty funny on his part.
Behind me, an exceptional group of individuals who are serving Canada, united, focused cabinet, focused on action, focused on the issues for Canadians. We are, as I said a moment ago, we will be going to take some decisions which directly meet some of the objectives I set out in my remarks and we've been discussing. That's the news for today. There will be other news in the coming days with respect to ensuring that we have as strong a mandate that is needed for the time. Thank you.
And when you're in Europe, are you going to be seeking assurances from Canada's allies that this country will never become America's 51st state? And when would it be an appropriate time for you to take that message to the U.S. president?
Well, I've been clear. Personally, I've been clear. The ministers behind me, I think, to an individual, when asked, have been clear that we will never, ever, in any way, shape, or form, be part of the United States. America is not Canada. Look at the ceremony we just had. You could not have had that ceremony. You would not have that ceremony in America. Look at the cabinet behind me. You would not have that cabinet in America. You do not have that cabinet in America. We are a very fundamentally different country. So irrespective of any issues economically, fundamentally to our core, to our identity, is one reason why we have a minister, and I will thank Monsieur Guilbeault to be our Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture and bringing in all those aspects and reinforcing them. So before we get to the economics of it, we won't be part of it. And when we get to the economics, then the president is a successful business person and deal maker. We're his largest client in so many industries. As the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Industry, Monsieur Leblanc and Monsieur Champagne have made this point. And clients expect respect and working together in a proper commercial way. So the nature of Canada means we won't. The economics means we shouldn't. And what you will see from this government is focusing on building here at home, building with different partners abroad, and that will reinforce the point. It's good. We're doing it for our own reasons, to be clear, for our own people, for the high-paying jobs. But eventually, the truth will out, and the Americans will understand as well. Thank you.
Our allies, sir, do you want to
No,
hear
I don't think we need. Look, I don't think we need to hear it from. Nous sommes maîtres. We're masters in our home. We're in charge. You know, we're in charge. It's always nice when people say nice things about you, but we don't need it. We're not seeking it. What the discussions I will have on behalf of the government in Paris and in London will relate to opportunities that both our countries share, as well as our shared history.
Monsieur le Premier ministre, Valérie Gamache de Radio-Canada, enchantée.
Merci.
Vous n'avez pas de ministre.
Interesting how he shut that one down.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And here's the thing, right? I had a debate with someone on this. Of course we need that. It's like, no, we don't.
No.
Mark Carney is absolutely right. Canada does not need any other country to stand up and speak for us. We are perfectly capable of speaking for ourselves. Now, is it nice when other countries proactively speak up for us? Of course. Is it helpful? Of course. Do we need it? No. We do not need it. And because he made this statement, a couple of days later, when the foreign minister of Germany, right here in Canada, during the G7 Foreign Ministers Summit, said that they were fully supportive of Canada because we didn't need it and did not need to go asking for it. It has way more weight. So those are like, we're nothing. We need other people to stand up and talk for us to validate ourselves. No, we do not. And he's just made that very clear.
Yes.
But thank you, Jeremy. Danke, Freundin.
Qui viennent de l'Alberta, qui ont une circonscription en Alberta. Est-ce que c'est parce que vous songez vous-même à vous présenter dans une circonscription albertaine?
So they're wondering, it's like, do you, there's nobody from Alberta in the cabinet. That's another thing. There's nobody from Alberta, nobody from Prince Edward Island, nobody from the north. Mark Carney could say, well, I'm the Alberta person. I'm the person from the north. Let's all remember that Chrystia Freeland was born in Alberta. So basically, they're asking
missed
him
that altogether, didn't they? Chrystia Freeland is an Alberta girl.
Yeah. So
a woman, Alberta woman.
But originally Alberta girl. So they're basically asking him, do you not have anyone in from Alberta because you plan to run somewhere in Edmonton? Now, remember, in Alberta, the choices are Randy Boissonneau, who's kind of having an issue right now, and George Chahal, who did introduce Carney when Carney made his announcement that he was in Edmonton. But, I mean, we still remember that George Chahal has a couple of issues.
Yes.
Some lingering thing from the previous selection that might make people wonder, you brought him? So when those are the only two choices you have, maybe you do take a pass. Now, for Prince Edward Island, it was the same thing. There are 4 seats and all 4 are occupied by Liberals. Lawrence Macaulay was the senior one, and was the person who was always in cabinet, but he's announced that he's not coming back. So you have that, and also in the cabinet, because there are a few Liberal MPs from Manitoba. I'm not sure if I think Terry Duguid from Manitoba is in there. There are no MPs from Saskatchewan because Saskatchewan decided it did not want to be part of government. Apparently, there is 1 seat in Saskatchewan in the next election due to the way borders have been redrawn, boundaries have been redrawn, that could be good for the Liberals there, and they might be spending a lot of way up in north of Saskatchewan, I believe, as well. That the Liberals might be
5 new constituencies.
Yeah, so that one might be one, and there's only 2 in Alberta, and now there's 14 in BC, and there's one. So there's only 2 cabinet members west of Thunder Bay out of all of them. So that might be a big issue there. But then again, there's not a lot to pick from.
Vous avez raison que j'ai grandi en Alberta et j'ai lancé ma campagne à Edmonton, ça c'est sûr. C'est pas le moment d'annoncer ma circonscription. Alors.
Okay, it says, you are right that I grew up in Alberta and that I launched my campaign in Edmonton, but now is not the right time to announce which seat I will be running in. Thank you.
Votre prochaine question? It's a question. I'm complimenting the journalist from Radio-Canada, and I would like to compliment the very existence of Radio-Canada, and I'd like to reinforce that my government would be reinforcing. It goes back to Canadian identity, culture. This is away from the news, but the broader sense. So I'll finish the answer. I compliment the question. She's recognizing that I grew up in Alberta. I launched my campaign in Alberta. I'm just reinforcing today. Today, the story is behind me, and there will be more news because those behind me will be taking some important decisions this afternoon.
Monsieur Carney, depuis le début de votre point de presse, vous avez 3 fois mentionné les langues officielles. Pourtant, le nom langues officielles n'apparaît pas dans le nom du ministère de Monsieur Guilbeault. Et vous avez remplacé patrimoine par identité canadienne. Est-ce qu'il y a là un message pour le Québec?
Okay, so you've mentioned official languages 3 times during this press conference, but there is no longer officially a minister of official languages, and Canadian heritage or patrimoine has now been replaced by Canadian identity. Is there a message for Quebecers in that? And then he starts with no, not
C'est
at
un
all.
renforcement de notre identité. La langue française est au sein de l'identité canadienne. Et M. Guilbeault, il est un ministre exceptionnel, mais il a maintenant la responsabilité. Il a encore des responsabilités pour les langues officielles. Mais cette question de l'identité canadienne, c'est plus large de notre langue officielle. C'est plus large de notre patrimoine. Ça existe maintenant. On renforce, on bâtit l'identité canadienne. Ça inclut, ça c'est clé.
Let him finish the answer.
L'identité canadienne inclut la nature. Et une des responsabilités de M. Guilbeault est de ramasser toutes nos responsabilités en ce qui concerne la nature, la biodiversité, nos océans, et de les protéger et les promouvoir. Merci.
Okay. So it says it's not about there's no message other than we are reinforcing our commitment to official languages and to French and that type of stuff. It's the French language and the French fact is at the heart of our identity as Canadians. Now, Minister Guilbeault is an exceptional minister, and he still has responsibility for official languages, but Canadian identity is larger than just language or identity itself. It also includes nature. And one of Stephen Guilbeault's responsibilities will be to amass everything that we're doing with regard to nature, biodiversity, and oceans, and to protect and to promote that. So Stephen Guilbeault still has a bit of an environmental aspect to it, but all Parks Canada and all that kind of stuff, that now falls under him. And all of that, Canada, true north, strong and free, and the vast expanses and the beautiful nature, and all of that is part of Canadian identity too. So that's why you say the Canadian identity. It's just that it's not that we're ignoring. It's just that we're looking to reinforce it as at the heart of our identity and to expand the concept of Canadian identity to be larger than just language or culture, especially now that we're going to this trade war, right?
J'ai une question. Next question.
Prime Minister Carney, first off, congratulations.
Thank you.
Second, David Baxter, Canadian Press. April 1st is fast approaching, the date the consumer carbon tax is set to increase once again. You've talked about getting rid of it. How are you going to do it in the next 2 weeks?
Your question, how are we going to do it by the end of the day? That's a great question. And we'll come right back to you on that following the cabinet meeting.
In that order?
You have a better follow-up than that.
Oh, there is a better follow-up, but just to get clarification, you are going to do it by cabinet order?
Then that would be 3 questions, and everyone else will get angry.
There we go. We'll go back to it. So you've talked about Trump needing to show Canada respect.
President Trump.
President Trump needing to show Canada respect. You said that again just now. Are you not going to speak with President Trump until he cuts out this 51st state talk?
No. I look forward to speaking with President Trump. Just to be clear, we respect the United States. We respect President Trump. President Trump has put some very important issues at the top of his agenda. We understand his agenda. We understand the importance of addressing the scourge of fentanyl, which is a challenge here in Canada as well as the United States. And I would say that the measures that have been put in place in recent weeks in Canada and Mexico, also the United States, means that we are making tremendous progress. I'll speak specifically for Canada against fentanyl. We understand the importance President Trump places on American workers and American jobs. We want him and his administration to understand the importance we put on Canadian workers and Canadian jobs. And we will look for avenues to work together so that both objectives are met in terms of both our great economies, just as we are doing, and the people behind me have led this, just as we are doing with respect to the scourge of fentanyl. Thank you.
Prochaine question. Next one.
Hi, Prime Minister Carney. I'm Jillian Piper with Global News. I understand that your assets have been put into a blind trust. I wanted to ask you, what is the value of the assets and where did they come from? How can Canadians know that there's no conflict of interest if they don't know where the assets come from?
That's an odd question, or odd way of framing it. The assets are in a blind trust. So, and can I point out that for those who don't follow this, I have 6 months to put, or 120 days to put the assets in a blind trust. I already have put the assets in a blind trust. And once assets are in a blind trust, you don't know that, by definition, you don't know the assets because the trustees take over the responsibility. I would like to reassure you that the assets that I have were earned through employment. Employment income, employment as a public servant, and employment in the private sector. And I would note as well that employment in the private sector is something that the Leader of the Opposition has never experienced. And I would point as well that complying or meeting standards expected of a leader of a party, let alone a Prime Minister, is something that the Leader of Opposition has not respected either, and I'm speaking directly with respect to his refusal, still at a time of great crisis, to get his security clearance, something I managed to do in 2 weeks.
All right.
En ce qui concerne mes actifs, j'ai...
That's a shot fired.
Yes, exactly. And you can maybe given that he's going to say the same thing in French, move to the next part in English. But here's the thing, right? With this, first of all, pointing out I filed everything. And I have no problem meeting standards, and that everything was acquired through work stuff. Now, here's the thing. Pierre Poilievre also has controlled assets that he is not declared and put in a blind trust himself. Now, the thing with a blind trust is once you put things in a blind trust, you don't know what's in it anymore, right? Trustees can make trades for you and on. So right now, if he could maybe make a decision right now, given I know what I had in my things yesterday, but his trustees literally could have sold everything off the second he put it in.
Yeah, he has no idea.
The longer he is Prime Minister, the less likely he is going to know what it is that he has, the less likely he's going to make decisions that have a conflict of interest. Pierre Poilievre has made every decision he has made as Leader of the Opposition, controlling all of his assets, none of them in a blind trust.
Yeah.
And
conflict of interest.
If we're talking about conflict of interest, and now the Conservatives are coming out and saying that's not good enough, because he needs to tell Canadians everything that he has. Now, everything that he has will be publicly disclosed in manners that protect everyone through the ethics office. Once they go through everything and they publish it, just like everything Pierre has is kind of published that way. It's noticed that when I went to look at Pierre's, he's got some shares and he is invested in Bitcoin, by the way, and all that type of stuff. So, but which Bitcoin fund, which company? No, he's got investments in Bitcoin in general. So Pierre has already shown as conflict of interest because he was invested in Bitcoin, and he had that thing where he was doing the hookah thing, and then he went and bought himself something at a pizza or a burger or something like that and paid it with Bitcoin and all that. So all that Bitcoin stuff, he was actually invested in Bitcoin at the time that he was doing that. So the conservatives basically saying you need to tell every single stock share that you have and how much and when you had like this, make that available to the Canadian public. A request that has not been made of any politician ever before. And the implication being that he must have acquired those through some type of deceitful means, and that
he's 60 years old. He's been an international banker for, like, come on. Come on.
As I said, listen, there is no age to greed, but the thing is he's already gone way further than your guy.
Well, what I'm saying,
and you're saying that he still needs to go further.
He's been working for a very, very long time.
He will have assets.
Accumulate assets, right?
Yes, absolutely. Right.
Especially in the line of work that he was in. So
yes, exactly. So, and like, you're going to tell me that someone who works as a banker is not going to properly manage assets for himself and his own family, right? Like, come on. So, but the insinuation again is that Mark Carney is sneaky. He's underhanded, right? But we all know Pierre is sneaky. We all know he's underhanded. We all know that he won't sit for security clearance. We all know that he certainly will not put his stuff in a blind trust 6 months before has to. We all know that even if he did, he would not make everything public. He hasn't yet. He's been in Parliament for 20 years. He hasn't done it. No. So they are demanding of Mark Carney that which it is they are not prepared to do themselves. And even though he's already done more, rather than looking at this and going back and having a meeting and say, oh crap, he did all that. We need to do something. We need to at least match that. They come out and say, you need to do more. We're not yet satisfied. Excuse me?
Interesting comment from PNC Bio. $7 million is apparently what Mark Carney's net worth is valued at. $7 million. That's a lot of money to you and me. It's a $7 million after 25 years of banking. Kind of shows that it's been public service for the most part. It's just 7 years at 25. He's 60. So how long has he been in banking for? I mean, I'd say he's rather conservative in his investments.
Probably
not a big gambler, and clearly not greedy. He has more than enough.
Oh yeah, clearly.
If he wanted more, he could go out and get it, but he hasn't.
He could write his own ticket.
Oh yeah. All right, we'll continue.
Prime Minister, you keep pointing at the group behind you, your new cabinet. There's only 2 representatives from the West. What's your message to Western Canada?
So the numbers in the cabinet are all necessarily smaller because the cabinet is much smaller. And the cabinet is much smaller because it's focused on the issues that are most important to Canadians. Meeting the moment, and the moment is a moment of crisis. We have very capable, exceptional members from Western Canada in there, as well as deputies from the West. But it's a factor when you reduce things down. And I'm Prime Minister of all of Canada, of course, and I'm from the West. And I would note maybe as well. And this is a challenge I think we have. I'll just make a general point. Let's take an example of Chrystia Freeland. Okay, exceptional minister, exceptional public service. Chrystia Freeland lives in Toronto. Chrystia Freeland is from the West. Chrystia Freeland is from Alberta. But people get classified in a way that limits the breadth of experience. I could give you many examples of the pan-Canadian nature of this cabinet.
Last question and follow-up. Dernière question et question de suivi.
Ramsey with the Toronto Star. Prime Minister, speaking of your cabinet, the front line of your cabinet and the vast majority of your cabinet were all ministers during Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's time. How does this represent change?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is this first thing, smaller cabinet, more focused on action. Everybody in this cabinet is senior. everybody in this cabinet is senior, so I don't accept the front line and the implication that there's a front line and another line. The second thing is one of the top issues, of course, is the crisis with respect to the United States and the opportunity with respect to trade diversification. So keeping together those individuals who have been on, and now I'm going to use your term, the front line, but the front line in a commercial battle, keeping together those individuals so that we are seamlessly addressing these issues and seizing the opportunities was very important to us, and that's reflected in the cabinet. But of course, it's reflected fundamentally in their capabilities, which are here for the moment.
And on President Trump, what makes you think you personally would be better fit to handle him than Trudeau was, and why do you think he'll have more respect for you than he did for him?
Look, I'm not going to put myself into to represent that President Trump in any way, shape, or form. President Trump and I, though, we share some experiences. I have been in the private sector. I have worked in the real estate sector. I have done large transactions. I have worked with him during his first presidency at the G20, at the G7. I respect what he is looking to accomplish. And we have built a base through the interactions that we've had, including as of yesterday with the meetings of the Minister of Finance, well, I'll say, because their roles have slightly changed, Monsieur Champagne and Monsieur Leblanc, and Premier Ford with the Secretary of Commerce, as well as the meetings that the Minister of Foreign Affairs had with her G7 counterparts, including Secretary Rubio. So we are building that base. But in many respects, part of my experience overlaps with that of the President. We'll both be looking out for our countries, but he knows, and I know from long experience, that we can find mutual solutions that win for both.
Thank you.
Sur Monsieur Trump, s'il vous plaît.
Ça, c'est, en ce qui concerne M. Trump, alors, lui et moi, nous avons des expériences
it's the same
similaires
answer in
dans le
French
secteur
that he gave in
privé.
English there.
Par exemple,
And I believe that was the last question,
Yeah, that is the last question. Yeah,
if I remember
That's the last
correctly. Yeah.
question. Yeah, that's the last question.
So again, nothing particularly flashy, but there are a couple of moments like, oh, but well, carbon price will wait till the end of the day.
Mhm.
That was probably the big kind of announceable, and then like I said, some smaller ones like, it seemed to show an inclination of maybe being willing to speak to President Trump on the phone, but there's not going to be anything in person for a while yet, it would seem. He's not particularly rushing to get on that. Now, this contrast from Prime Minister Trudeau, but we also have to remember different context. Right?
Mhm.
When Prime Minister Trudeau went to Mar-a-Lago, President Trump had just been reelected, wasn't actually in office yet, but had been reelected. There was a phone call. As Trump said, hey, maybe we should have something, we should meet. And Prime Minister Trudeau said, sure, let's do that. Now, at that time, because it was so fresh, going there, being the first one in his ear, that type of thing, that was pretty important. We've had a little bit of time since then, though.
Mhm.
And now, of course, the important thing is to, especially with the new person, is to, as I keep on saying on the show, we teach people how to treat us. So, Prime Minister Carney basically saying, Trump, President of the United States, important person, I understand his things. We have a couple of things in common here and there. In terms of priorities, things we want to work on. But not particularly my priority right now. You can wait. He can wait. Mr. Impatient can wait.
Mhm. Yeah, he can wait his turn. I
He
have
can
other
wait his
things I
turn.
have to deal with.
Yeah. He's not the most important thing in the world. Thank you very much. And he's not the most important thing to us anymore. Thank you very much. that's, again, it's so subtle.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's a jab.
There are people like me, like this, who get paid big bucks to sit in front of the monitor and watch these things and to pick up all these things apart. And trust me, in those little rooms, while everybody watching at home going, oh, okay. While those rooms, it was like, wow, that's what's going on in those rooms. Damn, did he say that? Because these are big statements.
Well,
they're huge statements, and they're heard around the world.
This is from the Times of London from yesterday. Mr. Smooth must beat Canada's mini Trump. Sleek and pugnacious Mark Carney's sudden rise to political power was aided by the U.S. president. Now he must deal with the populist at home, writes Oliver Shaw.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the world sees Pierre Poilievre for who he is.
Absolutely.
Why can't our own media do that?
Right? Now, Mr. Grizzly, I'm going to send you a couple of little things. We're going to have a tiny little bit of fun before talking about Mr. Singh, because since we're talking about Trump a bit, and we talked about Marco Rubio while he was here, I'm going to I've sent you a thing that has two little things. The first one's a clip of him speaking at the G7. It's just 30 seconds. But he made a statement that made my ears go, huh? Now, remember, he came here and said that this is not a meeting to discuss Canada becoming the 51st state. You're damn straight, especially not on our soil. But he was asked about what President Trump said, and also remember in the press conference that talking about respect, the journalist said Trump, and Mark Carney corrected him, President Trump. So Mark Carney is showing the respect he expects to get.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand why the Canadians are taking such umbrage at these comments coming from the president? Is that something?
The Canadian government has made their position, how they feel about it, clear. The president has made his argument as to why he thinks Canada would be better off joining the United States for economic purposes. There's a disagreement between the president's position and the position of the Canadian government. I don't think that's a mystery coming in, and it wasn't a topic of conversation because that's not what the summit was about.
Mr. Secretary,
Okay. Marco Rubio seems to be clear that Canada has made its position clear. So maybe that should be a message that he brings back. 2, Trump made his argument. That caught my ear because here's the thing. Nobody proposed the fucking debate.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason for an argument.
None.
There is no debate.
No,
there's no need to come into the room with an argument on that point. So, Mr. Trump did not make an argument. That thing he did is not called an argument.
Well, and the subtleness here of the passive Canadian way.
Yes.
I love Canadians. Look at the length of the red carpet that was rolled out for U.S. Secretary of State Rubio in Canada. Let's just blow that picture up, shall we? That is a small little entrance area rug. They didn't roll out the red carpet. They put a red mat down for him.
And look where they put it.
Right in front of a puddle.
And it doesn't even cover the whole puddle.
No. That's a little passive-aggressive move.
We are petty as fuck, and I love it. Hey, a whittle carpet for Whittle Marco. He's got to thank Trump for that one.
Oh yeah, Widow Marco.
There's a reason the carpet was Whittle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's directly related to his boss.
Nobody else.
And yeah, that got a lot of attention. And I am sure that the two women who are standing there waiting to greet him with those beautiful smiles they have on. I bet you they're smiling not because they're happy to see him.
Mm-hmm.
We're part of it. We're in on it.
Somebody probably brought out the big roll because that was in where was that held? Kananaskis?
No, Charlevoix.
Charlevoix.
In Quebec, La Malbaie.
Okay, so they would have had a large roll of red carpet. It's like, no, just throw that mat out. That's all he's getting. That's all he's getting. We're not rolling out the red carpet for him. Just put a mat down. That's it.
Oh, shit. Okay, I have to send this. I just stumbled upon this one. Oh my God. Okay, for those of you who love cats, you're about to get your fix visually. Oh my God. I normally don't do this, but I just saw this, and oh my God, that's so funny. Jeez. I'm sorry, I can't stop. It caught me off guard. I can't stop laughing. Oh my God. Okay. Whew.
Yeah, that's pretty good, actually. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Right?
The spirit of Lorenzo the cat. These cats got a better red carpet treatment than Marco Rubio did in Canada. That's funny.
Oh, thank you, Internet. And then we have somebody that goes by Debozo 1 in English says, Canada didn't roll out the red carpet for Rubio. Someone got him a red bath towel at Giant Tiger and threw it on the puddle.
Basically.
Oh God, I love it. Thank you, Canada, for showing me that I'm not the only one who's petty around here. Oh, I love that. Okay. Now, moving from the comic relief to there's that's my scientific word for it. Jagmeet Singh.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a clip for you. We'll play it. The first minute, it's really short. It's like 10 minutes total. The first minute and 3 seconds is the entirety of his statement before Q&A in English. Mr. Grizzly.
So what we saw today with the cabinet selection really shows you the priorities of Mark Carney at a time when people are really worried. There's a lot of fears, resilience and strength, but a lot of worry about the cost of living already being high and a trade war increasing it. People are worried about losing their jobs. And what Mark Carney has shown is that he has not made a priority a lot of the people in our country. Women, there's no minister related to issues impacting women, youth, people living with disabilities, people with diversity. He's also notably, and this is one of the most notable things, he does not have a minister for labor. Even Stephen Harper had a minister for labor. At a time when we do not have a plan for workers if they lose their job, 60% of workers are not covered by EI. He doesn't have a minister for labor. Now you might say it's just a name. Well, the name means something. He's signifying clearly that he is not interested or not prioritizing labor, unions, workers. That is very problematic to me. He's also showing us his plan. His plan is to ignore the plight of working people and to have a tax cut for millionaires, to cut services and cut workers. That is not the right plan for Canadians. Also notably, Karina Gould is not in cabinet, and that's sending a message to progressive Liberals that there's no place for you in this new Liberal Party with Mark Carney at the head. We're going to continue to fight for workers. We're going to continue to fight for supports for those workers. I'll do that in French.
Okay. Jagmeet Singh, to be fair, is working with what he's got.
Yes.
Okay. But even there, he screws it up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Doesn't care about labor. The former head of the Canadian Labour Congress is on the U.S.-Canada Special Committee that's been designed. Karina Gould is not in. He doesn't care about progressives. Patty Haidu ran homeless shelters and service support for abused women. Nate Erskine-Smith isn't exactly a hardcore capitalist.
No.
Stephen Guilbeault, as Pierre Poilievre reminds us, refers to himself as a socialist. All three are in cabinet. And I'm sure there are others, if I think about it. There is no sign being sent to progressives. If you actually look at the cabinet. Again, Jagmeet, bless his heart, is working with what he's got. And he hasn't got much. And he's doing the best he can. But and then, of course, back into the whole thing. Well, he's a banker, so well, we know bankers, right? Playing on all those tropes and the stereotypes of bankers. But I don't think that Mr. Singh has any particular knowledge of Mr. Carney in that sense to be totally real. Later on in the press conference, he's actually asked at one point, has Mr. Carney been in contact with him? Said no. So Mr. Carney, I'm getting the feeling, might be treating Mr. Singh like he is irrelevant.
Certainly would seem that way.
Not mentioning him, not making a big push to call him, not making a... Now, again, you could explain, again, this early on, because that's still swearing in day. There's a lot of things to do between the time you are named the leader and the swearing in comes in and pick a cup. So it's not particularly the time that, well, my first priority is to call the leader of the fourth party. But so, right. But I have hardly heard Mr. Carney mention Mr. Singh's name ever, or the NDP
I don't think I've
ever
ever heard it,
in the
actually.
entire leadership campaign.
I don't think I ever heard it.
Right. So this could be a deliberate strategy.
Could very well be.
Just treat the NDP like it doesn't exist, particularly in an election that is looking to be extremely polarized.
Yeah.
Just don't talk about them at all. They're not there. And it's cold and it's a little callous and it's, I can understand how people who are really hardcore NDP supporters would take really big offense that he would not want to reach out across the aisle and do that. If it's right now based on the expectation that will be an extremely polarized position, and certain polling companies are showing the NDP below 10%.
They're about to be decimated.
I personally believe that. I personally believe that that's an outlier below 10%, but you never know. But if that is the case right now, based on current status and current data, Carney doesn't need him.
Not at all. Let's continue with his. He's got one question here that.
Move shows that.
Yeah, and this one's very, very important.
Mr. Singh, you mentioned that you want to pass supports for workers. Would you be willing to work with the Carney government to stay in power even after March 24th?
Well, what I've said is my priority right now is at a time of unprecedented unpredictability and threats to our very sovereignty, that given that seriousness, we need a protection in place for workers, and it's not there right now. Right now, only 40% of workers are covered by the current EI. So for workers that are staring down the barrel of potential job losses in a massive degree, a massive level, they don't have protection. So I want to see those measures put in place. We can make that happen rapidly. We also need an economic plan to create jobs in our own country. We can't predict what's going to happen in the States, but let's have a plan in Canada where we use Canadian products, Canadian workers to build up our country. I want to see that plan passed first and then an election afterwards.
If it takes more time to get that plan, if it
60% of workers are not covered by EI? Where's that coming from?
I think he's using the fact that even though everybody pays in, technically everybody is covered, the number of people who apply and can actually access it because they don't meet the criteria or something.
If you don't have enough weeks,
that probably comes down to 60%.
Okay. But that I'm not saying he's incorrect. I'd never heard that before.
Yes, but it doesn't mean that they're not covered, but they're. I mean, if you're covered but you can't access it, then what's the point of having it? In that sense, but yes.
takes more time to get that plan in place, would you be open to cutting a deal with the Carney government to work through to get that plan after March?
Well, yeah, it's going to take time to get that. If that pushes the election back a bit, that's fine. For me, the priority is to get this stuff done first, and then we go to an election. If it takes more time to put in place protections for workers, to put in place an economic plan to create jobs for workers, yeah, I'm prepared to have a bit more time to get that done for workers, and then we go to an election.
C'est combien? Un bit more time c'est
Oui,
combien?
en français, et puis, oui, l'autre question.
That's pretty much the end. So those were the two most important things. Are you confused? Because I'm confused because he's been asked this question many times. Would you want, because he keeps on saying Parliament should be open, but would not say that he would vote to keep Parliament open if Parliament was recalled. I'm going to vote down the Liberals at the first possible opportunity along with Pierre. Now all of a sudden he wants Parliament to be reopened to actually pass these bills and these things that he says, and doesn't mind that he's open along. That's the answer you should have given 3 months ago. Just come lately. You're too late. And this is a thing with him all the way through. Either way too late or way too early. Too late to get out of the supply and confidence agreement at the time that he did. If his goal was to build distance from the Liberals, he would have had to do that about 6 months earlier or a year earlier. Right? But when he does, breaks the deal, won't commit to take the government down. Then later on decides he's taking the government down at the first available opportunity, like this, while calling for more bills to be passed and not saying he will help. Now that we have Carney, and now that he is like so down when the polls went on, now he's willing to say that he would vote that if Parliament was recalled, to actually have Parliament do things and operate and pass bills. It's too late now. That was on the 14th. If Parliament is going to reconvene to do that, that's 10 days later on the 24th. You had 3 months to send a signal that you're good faith. 10 days before it's supposed to resume, who's going to believe you? And which Canadians are sincerely going to believe that you really believe in these measures and these packages, Mr. Singh? Because, again, I will remind you, Mr. Singh, that Parliament was running from September to December. And from the second week it was recalled, the Conservatives put on that filibuster, saying that Parliament should be reconvened. Put on the filibuster, blocking everything from passing in Parliament. And all along, throughout that entire time, all you had to do was vote once to lift that filibuster, to pass any of the other bills. And you could not find a bill that is currently being discussed in the House, a bill to improve access to early voting during election time, the first bill ever co-written by Indigenous people and the Government of Canada. A whole bunch of them. There are 2 or 3 or 4 other bills in there that are really lined up with NDP priorities that you did not lift a damn finger to help pass. Pierre Poilievre led the filibuster, but you aided and abetted. You complied. And now you want us to believe that if Mark Carney was to reopen Parliament, that you would be willing to work collaboratively when you've done the, I tore up the agreement, I might be voting them out. You've been doing this dance for how many months now? To no benefit to you, based on the polls. You did not pivot at any point. And 10 days before Parliament was supposed to resume, now I'm willing to do the decent thing. You will forgive Mr. Carney if he doesn't think you're all that serious there. Mr. Singh. Then we had Pierre Poilievre belly up to a mic and say a couple of things. Part of me doesn't want to show a damn thing because it really is all just BS. By the shovelful. He has an initial statement. He's not happy. Goes into criticizing Stephen Guilbeault for having been arrested. But then he does something, another thing, where every accusation is a confession. And you will remember that it was very, very recently, I think it was, that Pierre came out and tried this one on Canadians, and it was, Mark Carney has nothing but slogans to offer, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Slogan
that's
boy
exactly what he said. Yeah.
wants us to believe that Mark Carney has nothing but slogans to offer. And Mr. Grizzly, I'm going to send you a little something. The first one, link, is the thing I want to show now, and then the second one will be Pierre's press conference. That particularly, right there, was rich. Coming from him. Right? That Mark Carney has nothing to offer but slogans. But one of the things we have been saying on this show about Pierre Poilievre and his way of doing business. Right now, Mr. Grizzly is showing the visuals here where we have a Pierre Poilievre 4 times where he's standing talking to Canadians. And we have Canada First, which is a slogan. Axe the tax, which is a slogan. Bring it home. Or instead he says in French, le gros bon sang, which is not a direct translation at all.
Yeah.
So 2 slogans for the price of 1.
Bring homes workers can afford.
And then
build the homes. You notice what's interesting about this photo here, the bring it home, le gros bon sang?
Hmm?
You know what's in the background?
Niagara Falls?
The American Falls.
American Falls, yes, of course.
Not the Horseshoe Falls on the Canadian side, the American Falls.
Just there are people who are paid to think about these things. He clearly has not hired them. So Pierre Poilievre starts rambling. And one of the things, and I will have you go to 1319, Mr. Grizzly. Pierre Poilievre makes an accusation of Mark Carney. And if you are drinking anything right now, I would ask you to put it down because the spit take might make a mess.
Nothing will get built anywhere in Canada because he will be standing in the way. Meanwhile, all of Trudeau's Liberal advisors, Gerald Butts and Tom Pitfield, are now top Carney advisors. They were in attendance today, not even hiding that they're still the ones running the show. The same people who ran Justin Trudeau are now running Mark Carney. Carney's chief of staff, his Liberal chief of staff, is a former Trudeau minister forced to resign for many scandals, including lying about moving Paul Bernardo out of a maximum security prison. You see, Mark Carney thinks Canadians are stupid.
Okay, stop right there.
He thinks that a little bit of cosmetic surgery.
Mark Carney thinks Canadians are stupid. Who's the one who's been treating Canadians like they're stupid? Yeah. Who's the one? Just invest it all in Bitcoin and everything will be okay. All we need to do is axe the carbon tax and nobody will be going to food banks ever again. And you'll be able to pay your mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
All we need to do is cut funds from municipalities in order to build the homes. Really? Mark Carney is the one that thinks we're stupid. Dude, every time you stand up at a podium, you tell us to our faces, watch how stupid I think you are and watch how I'm going to treat you, how you're stupid. You actually stood up. Girl. I'm still recovering from the eye roll strain when I heard it the first time. I pulled an orbital muscle. Come on, man. You've been leader since 2022, and all you've done is flood the zone with utter and total and complete BS.
From day
But it's
one.
the other guy who thinks we're stupid.
It's a sure sign of a narcissist.
Will allow the Liberals to disguise who they are and make people forget what they did for 10 years in order to elect them to a fourth Liberal term. But it's the same Liberal gang with the same Liberal agenda, the same Liberal results, and the same Liberal promises of the last 10 years. Only they want you to be fooled, and they want to take 4 terms.
So the Liberal promises, which ones of those again that he's upset about? Is it the Housing Accelerator Fund? Is it dental care for those who don't have coverage?
Yes.
Is it pharmacare for those who don't have? Is it $10 a day daycare?
Yes.
I think it's all of the above.
Because it helps you.
Exactly.
He is opposed to anything that helps you.
Yes.
All right.
Tax Carney will try later today.
And carbon tax Carney. That one doesn't work anymore because he just drafted legislation to eliminate the consumer carbon regulatory recovery fee.
He didn't draft legislation.
Not legislation, but
he passed an order in council.
Thank you.
Now, here's the thing. Now, Pierre Poilievre should know about orders in council because he sat at the cabinet table. Number one. Number two, Pierre Poilievre should know the difference between laws and regulations. Laws need to be passed and voted on by the House of Commons. Regulations do not. It's a law that says that there's going to be a consumer carbon pricing mechanism. How much it's going to be is a regulation.
Correct. And what people seem to forget, and a lot of people don't even know, because I had a conversation with somebody about this on Friday, and they said, well, we should just axe it all together. We're the only country that has one. I'm like, no, that's not true at all. He goes, what? I go, Ukraine has had one since 2009, number one. Okay. Number two, trade agreements that we have with countries in the European Union, it is a requirement of that agreement that we have a carbon regulatory recovery fee to try and reduce carbon emissions.
Yes. And for anybody who's listening, as of 2024, approximately 40 countries, including 25 subnational jurisdictions, have implemented carbon pricing mechanisms, including carbon taxes and emission trading systems covering about 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions. We are not the only one.
No. And there's a lot of people who don't even understand or acknowledge that. And I'm like, no. And my buddy looked at me and goes, that's not right. And somebody else at the table chimed in and said, no, that is right. We're not the only country. Most European Union nations have it. And our trade agreements require that we have one or we don't have a trade agreement. So if we cancel it, we're in violation of our contract.
Mm-hmm.
And the agreement gets torn up and thrown away. And then we have to go back to the U.S. with hat in hand. No, we're not doing that.
In 2021, Argentina, Canada, Chile, China, Colombia, Denmark, the European Union, all 27 countries, Japan, Kazakhstan, Korea, Mexico, New Zealand, Norway, Singapore, South Africa, Sweden, the UK, and Ukraine had carbon taxes. And at that moment, Brazil, Brunei, Indonesia, Pakistan, Russia, Serbia, Thailand, Turkey, and Vietnam were considering it.
And remember that the idea behind the carbon regulatory recovery fee. If you green your manufacturing process, your shipping process, if you go for greener pastures, for want of a better term, that will reduce your carbon footprint, which reduces what you have to pay into the regulatory recovery fee.
Yep. You choose.
Change your ways. It's an incentive for you to change your ways. Change your ways, do things greener and cleaner, you pay less. That's the idea behind it. Why can't anybody seem to understand that?
Well, you know that same thing, right? If your paycheck depends on not understanding it.
Yeah.
Or misexplaining it.
Yeah.
So let's keep going with Pierre had to say here.
Do we have to?
A little bit. Oh,
we got to
a
wrap
little
up
bit.
shortly,
Sorry.
We'll
I apologize, but a little bit.
Okay, to pull another fast one. This one's going to be very sneaky. Very sneaky. I call it the carbon tax con job. I told you this was going to happen, by the way. Don't say I didn't warn you. He's going to hide the consumer carbon tax for 60 days.
I just noticed something, and tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. And this is just, I think this is a subtlety on his comms team's part. Did you notice some gray highlights on the side? I don't know if it's the lighting. Is he doing
it's his
that
newest
intentionally?
makeover. Yes, it's his newest makeover now.
Yeah. So he looks more like Mark Carney? Is that what it is?
Yes, we have. Yes. There's something, again, he talks about sneaky. There's something, if you've ever remembered the movie, if you've ever saw the movie Single White Female, there's something very single white female-ish about Pierre Poilievre, because he seems to take on the identities of people. Like this, he was going for the whole fit thing, and like this
Justin Trudeau's
about Justin Trudeau, and then
exercise.
And then following a couple of weeks ago, he was really dipping into the bronzer. And now he's letting the distinguishing gray come to the temples so that he can look like a serious person. This guy isn't, when we say that there's absolutely nothing authentic about him other than the dickish nature in which he's leaning into. And this is what he mean. This is what we mean. He's a freaking chameleon. He keeps on changing. Who do you want me to be today? But the other guy is sneaky.
And if he's reelected, he'll bring it back bigger than ever with no rebate. Let's be clear.
Okay. You know that exactly
the
how?
carbon tax he intends to bring in after the election will be a...
You know that exactly how?
He doesn't. Just like, and here's like, just like the conservatives promised us up and down in previous elections that the liberals had a secret plan to impose capital gains on the sale of your principal residence, which never happened, or that special thing to what was it, something to do with the that they were going to raise the GST like crazy. So that didn't happen. They were planning to censor and control the entire internet, which after 9 years of Justin Trudeau still hasn't happened. They keep on promising us that they know exactly what the liberals are going to do and how they're going to screw you over, but it never seems to materialize. And Pierre, for Pierre to be able to know this, he would have had to have an inside track somehow into some cabinet meeting. He's just making shit up.
He doesn't even have security clearance. Can we please blow this reform party up altogether once and forever, put a nail in the coffin, bury it, throw it away into the dustbin of history, and start with a brand new progressive conservative party again? Please? Like, please. An actual progressive conservative party, because conservatives across this country don't have a voice anymore. Because this ain't it.
This is,
quote, shadow carbon tax. And we know that he loves carbon taxes because he publicly advised Trudeau over the last 5 years to raise the taxes even more.
Okay, let's make this
Here's what I've got.
Now.
Sorry.
With no rebate.
Okay. Number one. You guys introduced the concept of consumer carbon pricing under Stephen Harper. You guys introduced it without a rebate.
Correct.
You have been going around the country for the last 2 years, pretty much, more now, saying axe the tax, when you know damn well that axe the tax also means axe the rebate. And now you care about the rebate.
Yeah, funny how that works. Huh? Again, send your used flip-flops to Pierre Poilievre's office.
Now he cares about the rebate. All of a sudden, the rebate that he never mentioned. Now he cares about it. Now conservatives suddenly care about the carbon rebate. He's not the only one. But the other guy's sneaky.
Wouldn't one be held liable for such statements? And he does not have parliamentary privilege here. He's not in the House of Commons. How is he not pursued into oblivion yet? I don't know.
On this one, it would be hard to do because he's not alleging that someone did a crime. He's just alleging that somebody has some sinister plot to screw you over. And I guess that's technically not legal. But
there's a law that in Welsh Parliament, they wanted to pass a law, and I think it's actually being tabled, that if you lie, you cannot lie as a politician anymore. As a member of Parliament, you cannot lie, because if you will be charged, you will be censured, and you will be booted. Can we have that law here, please? I mean it. I want that law here. So, and I don't care who's in power. I don't care who's speaking. If you lie, you get punished. Because this man can't stand up in front of a microphone for more than 3 minutes and not lie a dozen times. We talked about that on what was it, Friday? Thursday, Friday last week, we showed it. And in the first 5 seconds, he lies twice.
Yep. He
is incapable of speaking and not lying.
But the other guy's sneaky. It's the other guy that's sneaky that you got to watch out for. Keep going for a little bit.
Let's be clear. He says that the carbon tax he intends to bring in after the election will be a, quote, shadow carbon tax.
No.
And we know that he loves carbon taxes because he publicly advised Trudeau over the last 5 years to raise the taxes even more. But here's what I've got.
How do we know
this?
that?
This is
Period.
the
Hold on.
liberal carbon tax law.
You're asking that?
This law cannot be...
Okay. You're asking that. Mark Carney, who is the United Nations envoy on climate action and finance, made the point that the rate at which we started carbon pricing was not high enough to have a material difference. He was right. That was a political decision to get us used to it, not have a shock, and gradually increase. So yes, while it wasn't high enough initially to do what it needed to do, and it should have been higher, and Carney appropriately advised that, there were also political considerations, and the government of Canada took those into account as well as the advice, and then made a decision. He's trying to portray it as Mark Carney was like riding them like a horse, going, "You got to raise it, you got to raise it." That did not happen. Now, what he's doing right now, you will notice, is that he is showing, because Mr. Slogans is also Mr. Props, showing a copy of the legislation that made carbon regulatory a thing. And he's going to say that, well, the law has not been repealed. It's still there, which is why he's saying 60 days from now, he's just going to bring it back like this. And he's going to have a shadow thing. So right now, conservatives are saying, well, if you don't want a consumer carbon price, and what Carney is not proposing is not a shadow carbon price, but the one on heavy emitters being raised up to compensate. And then to use that money to compensate Canadians for things like buying heat pumps and making... So what Carney is saying is that he's going to get the heavy polluters like this to put into a fund, and they are going to help pay for you to make the decisions as a citizen for your own homes that you want to do to reduce your costs and go greener. Yes, that does get priced in and does trickle down. Of course. That's business. No matter what it is, that's going to happen. Yes, but it's not a shadow carbon tax. In fact, it is the carbon tax that Mr. Harper pretty much specifically proposed, wasn't it? One that would be put on things with heavy emitters and that had no rebate for you. Why are you crying, Pierre?
Indeed.
So he's pointing to this legislation saying the legislation still exists, so it isn't repealed, not mentioning that there are things as order in council and all that type of stuff. And well, here's the thing, Pierre. If the legislation still exists and you are so worried for Canadians, then why aren't you calling for Parliament to be reconvened and promising that you allow the Parliament to actually operate long enough for the carbon tax legislation to actually be repealed? Oh yeah, you won't do that. So Pierre, it looks like you want this carbon tax to remain more than Mr. Carney, because you're not prepared to do what is required right now to actually have that legislation repealed. You want Parliament to reopen so that you can vote down the government on a confidence motion and say that you did it to get that clip. So if you're complaining about a law that still exists that you're not prepared to do anything to make sure it gets repealed, that would mean that all of a sudden you're the one who's championing the carbon tax, Pierre. He doesn't realize how Mark Carney has been laying traps and traps and traps for him, and he keeps stepping on the rakes.
Because he's not smart. He's not that smart.
You cannot repeal the legislation right now unless you reopen Parliament and allow it to operate, which you are not willing to do, which means you're the one that wants to keep the tax now. Dumbass.
He's not very smart. And the thing is, I keep reading online where people, and they've commented on some of our shows, oh, Carney's going to get, the PP's going to wipe the floor with Carney in a debate. I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. You saw him with Rosie Barton. He destroyed her when she tried to have a gotcha moment, and it didn't work because he's too smart. He's well prepared. He comes with notes and receipts, and he knows what he's talking about.
And it seems that he's really, really good at staying on message.
Yeah.
Pierre is the victim right now. This is what too rigid of message discipline does to you. This is the downside of it, because you can't get out of it after.
Like literally, who is he without Justin? Now he has to pivot to carbon tax Carney. So do you mean the carbon tax that he's working to just...
It's like, and there's no Justin, and there's no carbon tax now, and he's still going, carbon tax, and just like Justin. Fade away, Pierre, fade away. Fade away.
Why do I keep... Why do I have a scene from Brokeback Mountain playing over and over in my head right now?
I wish I could quit you.
I mean, really.
So we can stop now, because that was the extent of his things. Then he goes on after that, finishes off with about a minute and a half of fear.
Of course. Yeah. Did he say everything's broken?
No, but Canadians are afraid that, and Canadians are afraid that, and Canadians are afraid that, and Canadian Party's going to bring all that. So it's
Canadians
just
fear. Angry right now. I think we're pissed off and we're ready to put up the dukes and go to business. Go to town.
Yeah. Now I won't go through the question and answer period because we've seen enough of him. But the first question came from Alexandre Lavoie of Rebel News, of course, and long question saying all the things that Pierre would probably say but can't.
Mm-hmm.
But basically saying, like, so many people registered to vote in the Liberal leadership race, but so few of them voted. My God, this is so scandalous. What happened to all these people? Are you going to look into that? Maybe there's some integrity issue or whatnot. Well, you know what kind of person I am, right? Because, again, just a persistent little shit, as we beavers are.
Favorite color.
Yes, it is. I went to go look at the 2022 Conservative leadership race, which, by the way, had an entry fee of $300,000. Just to let you know. Was also a coronation for Pierre, another thing that they're complaining about. And the 2022 Conservative Leadership Convention had 675,000 members signed up, but only 412,690 voted.
Oh, wow.
What happened to the other 262-odd thousand people? Did they just disappear? Maybe we should look into the Conservative leadership race that elected Pierre Poilievre and find out whether or not something happened. And here's the other thing, too, is since we're talking about funny things going on with leaderships, Pierre Poilievre also made the point, another way that he's just like Trump, of saying that, if I remember correctly, my leadership convention is the one that had the most people vote in it. Obsessed with crowd size. Here's the thing. Explain to me how, logically and rationally, a leadership convention that happened in 2022 for the leader of a party that has no chance at that time of becoming prime minister until October 2025 gets 675,000 members to show up, and a leadership race that is happening, a lot of people think, immediately prior to an election, a leadership race that will pick the leader of a party who will de facto, who will de jure, or by convention, become the actual Prime Minister of Canada, the one actually odd, weird kind of time that we actually do get to vote directly for a Prime Minister of Canada, only gets 400,000 registrations, with 151,000 following through. It would seem that the opportunity to vote for a Prime Minister directly would get more people registering to vote in it than to vote for a leader of the opposition who won't be running in a federal election for well over 3 years after he gets elected. How did your leadership race get so many people, Pierre? Seems to be the question, because the stakes are much higher and people have a whole lot more to vote for this time. You really expect Canadians to believe that there was nothing weird about 412 more people voting for the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada than registered to have a chance to vote directly on who the Prime Minister of Canada would be? In an era of Trump, right before going into a general... Really? It seems to me that the Liberal numbers should prompt some very serious questions into how it is possible that your numbers were so big, considering the stakes. Do you really want to be drawing attention to this right now, Pierre?
Probably not a good idea to do that. Just saying. Just saying.
Just saying. Then somebody... you will notice that another thing that Mark Carney did in his thing was commended a journalist on their question. Never see Pierre doing that. There's the second journalist was from Radio Canada. Pierre broke out into a really weird smile. Like really weird. If you watch the clip, it's around 23:12. If you go look at it yourself, it's the CPAC on Pierre.
I've already killed it. I don't want to see it.
No. I'm not saying you two at home. If you want to look at it, 23:12. Pierre Poilievre, CPAC, March 14th. Really weird smile. And then
I got a desperate doggy here.
Yeah. Just want to finish it. So, and that's where I noticed that Carney will say in French about Radio Canada, that which Pierre will not. Then Pierre was asked whether Carney announcing that he will cut the carbon tax, whether it pulls the rug out from under the Conservatives. And then again, he brought out his thing and said, hey, like carbon tax, the law is not repealed. But let us remind everyone that in 2015 and under Aaron O'Toole, Pierre Poilievre actually went door to door and campaigned on carbon pricing. Campaigned on it. 2751, that's the timestamp if you're looking at it. He's asked if he still intends to fire the governor of the Bank of Canada. Well, if people don't do their jobs, they should be fired. Okay, once again, if that's what you believe, Pierre, how often have you done, how much constituency work have you done since becoming leader? How much leader of the opposition work have you done since becoming a leader of the Conservative Party of Canada? It seems that if you really did believe that someone should be fired for not doing their job, you should be handing in your resignation or firing yourself. And you should have maybe done this before you became leader, because as I remember, after 20 years in Parliament, you introduced 5 or 6 pieces of legislation, only one that passed, and that one got gutted. So if that is the standard that you're setting, that people do not do their jobs, they should be fired, why are you still here? Again, is this another one that you really want to be walking down, Pierre? Is this a path you want to walk? Really? Because I don't see good things for you here. Then finally asked, what does the drop in polls say about his leadership? Does not say a thing about his leadership or the drop in the polls. That's where you see he really panics. And finally, so he's got nothing.
Indeed.
Yeah. I've got something, but I'll save it for tomorrow here.
We'll save some stuff.
Because we've gone on long enough.
Yeah.
We have a show, Mr. Grizzly?
We do.
Okay. Kids and Cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us, because we really love making this one for you. Now, remember, oh, God, that was, sorry, I need to tamp down my evil. that laugh just came out. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate it when you do. And if you would like to make sure that you do not miss an episode in podcast form, then you scan that QR code that just appeared. Thank you to the Ray Girl for sponsoring our pod page. podpage.com/the-true-north-eager-beaver. Put a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you go there and click subscribe, boom, just like that, we come right to you. Bang. Because we work like that. We're efficient. Mark Carney. Now, if you would like to support us, maybe you would like to grab your surfboard and go on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where kids Cassie and Elaine are telling you to smash the buttons, inviting you. Like, share, subscribe. We have 3. Go crazy. Have fun. We get happy when you do it, and it helps us with the algorithm. Thanks so much, eh? And if you would like to help us in another way, let's say financially, because we do incur a cost or two in bringing this show to you, and if you do like our product and want to encourage us to do more, and of course, if you want to support Canadians, bringing Canadian analysis to Canadian news for a Canadian audience in a manner that respects their intelligence, then hey, have we got a deal for you? The Emergency Hydration Fund here at the Beaver Lodge, also known as a tip jar, at our coffee page, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, or the QR code that's right by Mr. Grizzly's head. If you scan that, you go there. And if you can drop a little coinage in our little jar, we would be so, so grateful. And you will instantly become 17.3% more interesting at parties if you do that. It's just science. It happens. Donate, you become more interesting. Now, if you're not able to donate financially, please do not worry, because the gifts of your attention and participation are the ones that mean the most to us, and we love to hear from you. truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is where you can write to us. You can also reach us at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge, at True Eager, at the Bad Place, at True Eager, True North Eager Beaver on Facebook, our original home, or if you're listening on YouTube, right down here in the comments section, just let us know what you think. We do read everything, not able to get back to everyone, but we do read everything, and everything makes the show better. Our email address, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, is also, if you would rather not go through, the PayPal mafia and that type of thing, in order to make your donation, and you want it to be 100% Canadian, like your beaver, just go through your bank. Send us a direct transfer, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. And like I believe Kit Wendy has, if I'm not mistaken, but we will give you more thanks tomorrow, Kit Wendy. But thank you. We saw to come in. So thank you for your donations, and please do write to us and let us know what you think. Because democracy is something that you do, we have a Quebec liberal leadership race, so please find out what you have to do there. There's a Progressive Conservative Party leadership race in Manitoba. Registration is already closed there, but if you are registered, please find out about your candidates and make a wise decision. Thank you very much. And yeah, I think that's all I got. Mr. Grizzly, do you have some words of wisdom?
I don't really have much to say right now. I'm we're in very, very strange and bizarre times, and each and every day there's just more strange and bizarre things coming our way, and trying to keep your head above water and make sure you don't drown in all of it is difficult. So I guess the best thing I can say to you is take some time today to show gratitude for the things you are thankful for in your life. Maybe, like me, go out to the pub and raise a pint of Guinness for the Feast of St. Patrick. That's why I'm not the floating head right now, but I will be in a second because I think it's funny. I think the floating head over the House of Commons is funny.
I'm crushing your head. I'm crushing it.
You can sort of see the Guinness logo, right? The floating head over the House of Commons. It's like I'm a beastly man. So, yeah, take some time today. Go out, celebrate St. Patrick's. Don't be silly because you probably have to work tomorrow. But go out and have a good time and be grateful and thankful that we still live in a country where we have a sane politician leading right now. Because we really could be in terrible territory otherwise. So just show some gratitude, be thankful, smile, laugh, have a chuckle, raise a pint for St. Patrick's Day, and enjoy while you can.
Mm-hmm. Sanity has been very underrated of late. Let's bring it back.
Indeed.
Mr. Grizzly, please cue the cock. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.
I gotta show you this.
All
This
right.
is. I just got this off Dean's Twitter. Oh my God. This is currently in Alberta.
Bro, it's been like 3 days.
Trump 2024 and F Trudeau and F Carney flags. Trudeau is no longer the prime minister. He has resigned officially. The new prime minister is Mark Carney, and he has an F Carney flag already. This is their entire identity.
Wow.
This is a sad, sad group of people. Look,
Wow.
everybody knows my disdain for Pierre Poilievre. I don't have fuck Poilievre flags, nor would I ever wave one, nor would I ever buy one. I have an identity outside of this. I'm going to the pub later to have a pint of Guinness. You guys have yourself a wonderful St. Patrick's Day. May the good Lord, may you be in heaven half an hour before the devil knows you're dead.
I love it.
That's an Irish thing, is what that is. I'll see you.